Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print, the Force is with the readers, and Star Wars comics actually do end until 1991 finally in this episode. I have tried 3 different ways to wear these things. Without the glasses, with the glasses, on top, with the glasses behind. Nothing is really comfortable. If you're trying to do Anaglyph 3D and you have glasses that you wear, you're just kind of screwed, it seems like. At least with these old cardboard ones from back in the 1980s. In any event, I'm your host Nathan P. Butler. We are taking a look this time at the final issue of Blackthorne Publishing's Star Wars 3D. This is issue number 3, entitled The Dark Side of Dantooine. This, of course, is part of their Blackthorne 3D series, which is number 48 from fall of 1988. This is number 48. Issue 2 was number 47. Issue 1 was number 30. Again, they're kind of skipping around as they produce these things. This one coming late in 1988. Now, again, check out the cover. That should look a little bit familiar if you've read this issue. However, unlike the last issue, where they just wound up taking a panel from issue number 1 and using it as the cover once colored, they kind of do what they did with issue number 1, where they had a scene on the cover that's very, very similar to a scene in the actual comic, kind of making you think that it maybe is an alternate take on the same art and they just chose one to use inside and then they took one of the unused ones for the cover. This looks fairly similar to this interior scene right here. Holy crap, it's Vader with Luke. This should be good. You can check this out, by the way, if you want to see if it's good. It's really not. In Wild Space Omnibus Volume 1, which will be out hopefully by shortly after you guys see this episode on YouTube. Now, this issue is written by John Stephenson, who was the editor back for issue number 2. There was no editor credited for issue number 1. This one's art is by Caesar Maximble, and again, pretty decent ships. So that same concept, right, of the anaglyph color-coded 3D, where you've got the red and the blue, and the distance between them determines how deep it looks whenever you're looking at it with those glasses on here. In this case, I would say the art is passable, not great. That's Luke there, Luke and Leia here. I mean, not terrible, not great, but still not, anything of the level of the stuff that we got in the early Marvel stuff, which is good because this is 1988. They better have been able to get the art of Star Wars right after 11 years. The idea here is that the Rebels need supplies. They've set up their base on Hoth. If you ask these guys, they did it based on issue number 2, Havoc on Hoth. We know that it's a different way that it all pans out, tying into Ice World from the newspaper strips and whatnot. But either way, they've set up their base on Hoth, and now they need supplies. So Leia, Luke, and R2-D2 travel in this, apparently, looks like it's a stolen Imperial Lambda-class shuttle. They travel to the planet of Dantooine, mainly because since Leia used that and the old base that was there as a bluff when dealing with the Empire, the thought is that the Empire's already checked it out, so they won't come check it out again anytime soon, so this would be a good place to possibly do business for the Rebel Alliance. They meet with an arms dealer to get some weapons and supplies. Luke wants being hassled by some ruffians and drawn away until he finally has to kill them to escape. At this point, though, Luke is starting to hear a voice, even as Darth Vader is sensing a strong Force presence, though Vader himself isn't there. We'll figure out why he was able to sense it later. Turns out that Luke is being drawn by these Force telepathic emanations. The Force is strong with this one. Easy catch. Vader be happy. Duh! Hello! If you hear someone in your brain going, Vader be happy, maybe you should run the hell away. I'm just saying. Luke is drawn in, and he meets these people known as the Fair Folk. Okay? The Fair Folk. They look like these little crosses between Orko in Masters of the Universe, see him kind of up there beside Vader where Luke is reaching out there, and a Jawa, basically. But they are, in a sense, an extension of Vader's will. They are Force-attuned creatures, but apparently dark side attuned because Vader is able to reach out telepathically through them so that when Luke takes the hand of one of the Fair Folk, he's basically taking Vader's hand, and it's allowing Vader to essentially be that member of the Fair Folk, because Luke needs Jedi training, and he's asking them to train him, but it's not really them. You see, it's Vader. Vader's trying to use them as a way of getting to Luke to train him in the dark side, to corrupt him, to bring him in as the new Sith apprentice so they can topple Palpatine and all that stuff that he talks about, of course, in The Empire Strikes Back. The problem is that as Luke is training, he's slowly but surely finding that he's being taunted, he's being belittled, he's being made angry, all these things that Ben would not seem to have wanted. Vader is playing on him, trying to get him angry. Of course. Why? Dark side. Until finally, Luke gets angry. Luke lashes out. In doing so, he's apparently earned the ability to finally see the man who's training him, and Vader appears to him. Again, Vader sort of telepathically through the Force showing up here, not actually being there in person, but to Luke's mind he is, because Luke is sort of in like a trance kind of thing. We've seen this pretty frequently where Luke is like in a dream state, battling with things that are sort of Force visions, but at the same time symbolic of something real and sometimes connected to something real. Marvel did that quite a bit. Suffice to say, it puts Luke in a position where he has to battle crazy phantom vision Vader there, which is actually kind of cool to see in 3D. You would think that Vader would be better than Luke at this point, but Luke is running on anger, on rage. He wants to destroy Vader, and Luke actually gets Vader to the point where he's about to deliver a killing blow, if Vader were, actually physically present, only for R2-D2 to smash through the area and disrupt this, part Force, part technological juju that's been done to Luke to cause him to see this vision, causing Vader to vanish because he was never there in the first place. But Luke has been drawn closer to the dark side, really, than he has been up to this point. At least that's what we're made to sort of think in reading this story. Presumably, this helps Luke make some decisions about what he wants to do about learning the Force. As they leave, Leia asks, "Take easy, Luke." Not take it easy, but take easy, Luke. I think maybe she's offering herself. Take easy. God, I hope not. Take easy, Luke. Are you all right? I think so. I saw Darth Vader. And they're writing it with all these ellipses in here. So it kind of makes me wonder if they got Mark Hamill confused with William Shatner or something. So it's, I think so. I saw Darth Vader. I fought him. I used the Force. Or rather, the dark side of it. It was awful, Leia. The ellipses are gone. But at the same time, very tempting. It would have been so easy to use it and become like him. If it weren't for you, you found it in yourself. But I have to find someone to teach me the ways of the Force. There must be a Jedi left somewhere. Of course, leading up to the idea that he's going to go find Yoda eventually, and Vader, for his part, on his ship, looking out the window, or the viewport, thinking about Luke, setting up, again, events for The Empire Strikes Back, which, of course, had already been released, it was 8 years earlier. I almost had you that time, Skywalker. You barely escaped my grasp. Next time you will not be so lucky. You will fulfill your destiny. So, kind of interesting here. It is a story set between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. It is an encounter, albeit in sort of metaphysical senses, not physical, between Luke and Vader, and we see them being nudged toward the events of The Empire Strikes Back. As it stands, a weird story. Kind of odd, kind of hard to follow actually sometimes, because sometimes it's hard to read the text clearly with the glasses, and even when you do, well, as in the case of Take Easy, Luke, it's not really the most well-edited and well-written story that's out there, but an interesting little tale for its time, and this winds up being an actual landmark in Star Wars publishing that people usually don't recognize. This, not Marvel issue number 107, not Ewoks number 14. This, Star Wars 3D number 3, 1988, is the last Star Wars comic to be published prior to the launch of the official continuity in 1991 with Dark Empire from Dark Horse Comics. It is this that opens that gap in the Star Wars publishing line. So, unusual place in Star Wars publishing history notwithstanding, is this issue, Star Wars 3D number 3, wow, I almost got tripped up saying that, Star Wars 3D number 3, The Dark Side of Dantooine, is this story an essential read? Absolutely not. Interesting, I guess, kind of weird, but definitely not an essential read. But it does bring to an end Star Wars 3D from Blackthorne Publishing and comics until Dark Horse. It's kind of unusual. There's some very loosely connected issues here for this series. one would have thought that if they were going to produce 3, it might have been one continuous story, but aside from a few little side references, not really. Yes, they're on their way back from Tatooine when they show up at Yavin Base, but of course now there has to be sort of a bigger gap put in there. And yes, they have just found Hoth in issue 2 before they're looking for supplies for Hoth in issue 3. But there's no villain that crosses through the entire thing. There's no main through line of the story. They just happen to be referenced as tying together. Without those little references, you'd have no sense that these were really connected at all. So, not really a series that I could recommend. Unusual finds for a collector. Kind of neat if you like the idea of Star Wars in 3D and you're lamenting the fact that while The Phantom Menace got a 3D treatment in theaters, Disney seems to have canceled all the other films getting that 3D conversion for now. But by and large, a very forgettable series that you really don't need to go back and check out, unless you're just looking for something weird. With that, we'll wrap up this episode and 1980s Star Wars comics. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the readers.